Good morning, dear participants
Hello, good morning.
of this online course on Satyasai Education in Human Values, organized by the Institute of Satyasai Education of South Europe. It is so wonderful to be together again after the summer holidays to continue this fascinating journey on the path of human values, which began last February with the first module of Course 1. On behalf of the coordinating team of this online course, I am very happy to welcome you today to the first session of Module 2. You have all received the detailed schedule of this module, which will be completed at the end of this academic year in June 2022. We have participants in this course from about 20 countries, not only from Europe, but also from countries outside Europe, such as Fiji, Ghana, India, Israel, Trinidad and Tobago, and Qatar. A warm welcome to all of you. During the 9 sessions of the first module, we covered the basic principles of Satyasai education in human values. We talked about the philosophy of this program, which has its roots in the Latin term educare, which means to bring out from within the inner beauty and light in the form of the 5 human values of love, truth, righteousness, peace, and non-violence. When this is done, one shines forth with a sterling character and experiences joy and fulfillment in life. And most importantly, has the ability to spread this joy and light all around. We also had the opportunity to hear about the life and teachings of Satya Sai Baba, the founder of this program, as well as a brief overview of the history of SSEHV and its application around the world. Today, along with the 70 Satya Sai schools in India, there are 44 Satya Sai schools and 31 institutes of Satya Sai education around the world. All these educational institutions spread the message of human values, which is so much needed today in our societies, which suffer from turmoil, unrest, and lack of peace. I recently came across a letter of Sri Satya Sai Baba sent to Dr. John Hislop, a great spiritual seeker who visited him many years back, inspired by his universal teachings of love and truth. In this letter, written on the 8th of September 1969, more than 50 years ago, Satya Sai wrote, "At the present time, there is an urgent need to transform methods of education. What man knows today is very little. It is just an atom of the vast unknown. But man is blinded by the flash of pride on this petty achievement. In reality, if man can only know the beginningless and endless, if he conceives the all-pervasive immanent energy, pride can find no place in him. Education is 3/4 character. Without that character, of what profit is it to bluster forth arguments and explanations? As a first step, character has to be fostered in the young children of today. Then only will the country achieve progress. The curriculum, methods of teaching and learning, the atmosphere of the institution, the behavior and attitudes of those in charge of teaching must conform to this ideal. That alone can bring about reform. Or else, men behave like beasts. When excellence and virtues are considered as of no value, when spiritual effort becomes an exercise only in words, when all activity is directed towards the secular and the temporary, real spiritual exertion is insulted. Spiritual yearning ought to be completely free from attachment to the sensory and objective world, and it should recognize and visualize Godhead, the Lord of the universe, in the sensory and objective world. That sacred vision and that holy feeling have to be asserted in action. It is only thus that the individual self can instantly realize and merge in the universal self, isn't it? End of quote. How high indeed the founder of this program sets the goal of education. We are very fortunate to have the opportunity to dive deep in the abiding message of the universal human values and move towards the realization of this goal. Today, we are very lucky to have with us once again one of the pioneers in the field of Satyasai education in Europe, Mrs. Marianne Meyer from Denmark, who will share with us her valuable insights on Satyasai education in human values pedagogy. Marianne is the life of the late Torbjörn Meyer, who was the founder of the SSE Institute, the first institute of Satyasai education in Europe, established in 1987. I have been a faculty member of this institute for many years, and I had the unique privilege to work very closely with Torbjörn and Marianne in human values seminars all over Europe. Marianne Meyer is born and lives in Copenhagen, Denmark. She has graduated from Copenhagen Business College and later continued her university studies in philosophy, psychology, and pedagogy on bachelor level. She has several additional diplomas in adult education, and during the years, she has been leading a number of personal development groups based on human values. Her professional life has included employment in different companies and associations like the Danish State Radio, Stockbrokers Office, the National Auditor's Office, Scandinavian Airline System, manager in private consulting company, Copenhagen Business School Research Center for Organization Development and Dialogue. As already said, Marianne has been an SSE Institute teacher trainer since 1987, and she's currently holding the position of director of the Institute. During the years, she has been conducting seminars in most of the European countries, as well as in Russia, Morocco, and Kazakhstan. She has been invited by the Satyasai Institute of Thailand to conduct training seminars in Thailand. She has been a keynote speaker at conferences arranged by the Satyasai Institute of Canada and Australia. A very rich experience indeed. Especially in Kazakhstan, Marianne has been sharing the SSEHV message during several international conferences, and recently she was rewarded with the Noble Heart Award for her dedicated engagement in bringing forward the universal human values. This was indeed the right choice of a person with a noble heart where pure love and wisdom abides. So it makes us all proud to see that Marianne's tireless efforts to disseminate the message of human values are recognized in this beautiful way. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome now Marianne Meyer to speak to us on SSEHV Pedagogy, that is, integral education. I would like to remind you to keep your mics and cameras off during the presentation and to use the chat during the questions and answer sessions. Enjoy the presentation. Marianne, please.
Thank you so much, dear George, for this beautiful introduction. I can only say I'm so happy to be back with all of you. As George mentioned, Module 1 gave a beautiful insight into the philosophy of SSEHV based on the principle of educare And we understood that bringing out the 5 human values gives us the possibility to experience the universal love energy. Today, the topic is pedagogy of SSEHV. Behind every philosophy is a pedagogy to make it practical. Pedagogy in general refers to the strategy or style of instruction which we use to implement a teaching. Originally, the word comes from Greek, meaning to lead the child. And as we have this beautiful wisdom with us here in the form of George, please, George, would you give us a little insight into its meaning? We see it on the next slide.
It's my pleasure, dear Marianne. So yes, as Marianne mentioned, the word pedagogy derives from Greek language. Originally is pedagogia, as you can see here. And this is a synthesis of 2 words. First one is pes, genitive pedos, which means child. And the second is ago, which means to lead. So the meaning is very clear. Pedagogy means to lead a child. And here I would like to mention that if the teacher is the one who leads the child, the goal should be very clear in the mind and heart of the teacher. And this is very important because in Human Values program, we are learning very clearly what is this goal, where shall we lead the children. So we will have the opportunity to hear about this from Marianne. So please.
Thank you so much, George. Yes, it is really important that the teacher has the true vision of how to lead the child. Today, pedagogy means the correct use of learning strategies where you learn your subjects and then you use appropriate methods to facilitate it. And looking into the educational system, we are met with many different pedagogical models. These models are reflecting various trends belonging to a certain period of time. If we instead combine the original meaning of pedagogy to lead the child with the philosophy of SSEHV, then we have the right focus point and it also becomes integral education. On the next slide, we will see what does integral education mean? I mean, why does we call it integral education? Because all aspects of the human personality is touched. And when we connect to all these areas within the personality, a balanced personality is cultivated, leading to harmonious development of body, mind, and soul. So this method is based on virtues and the ability to live this life. It combines personal and spiritual development with standard school development and knowledge. And this will shape the students into a sharing and caring individual. So the key element in this process is, as George already mentioned, character building. And the method becomes a tool to awaken the inner potential through a transformational process. This is done by eliciting the goodness from within, by finding out who we really are. We believe in the goodness of people and that happiness can be found by reconnecting to that goodness and bring it out. We believe that this goodness is manifested within the individual as the 5 human values. We believe, like Socrates, that all knowledge is within and just has to be activated and brought up into the light. This is to awaken our inner potential. And SSEHV Pedagogy has all the tools needed to awaken this sleeping potential. So let me describe this with a metaphor. I believe you all know the fairy tale, The Sleeping Beauty. She had been laying there for 100 years in deep, deep sleep, waiting for the prince to come and give her the wake-up kiss. And we are like the princes in deep unawareness of all the knowledge and the potential inside us, just lying there waiting for the prince to come and give us the wake-up kiss. The wake-up kiss could for sure be this SSEHV program. I think this is a very good metaphor to understand that all cognition is in fact recognition. All knowledge is within us. It just has to be awakened and practiced. I guess that you all from time to time has experienced that even you have not heard about things before, you are intuitively reacting, yes, yes, I know. Having the feeling of that this is just right. And how do you know? As you have obviously never been presented to that before. Unconsciously, you are recognizing that this is true. And the SSEHV program will intensify this process. On the next slide, we will see Maslow's concept of need hierarchy. And this can help us, this model, to understand how we, to a large extent, motivate ourselves by responding to our inner needs. Marslow has categorized certain inner needs in the following sections. The main areas are physiological, safety, social, esteem, and self-actualization. So if we have a strong inner desire, aiming at one of these headings, we will be guided by the respective needs within the light blue box below. If you have physiological needs like sleep, protection from danger, are hungry, etc., we will not be motivated by values at all, because we will be driven by fear or other physiological issues which will be filling our whole mind and system. It will all be about survival, and there will be no room for anything else. In the social box, we would search to belong to someone or something. Friendship would be important for us, and the love aspect will be directed towards other people. We need their love to feel love. We need to be accepted by others. Love on this level is conditioned. If we want esteem, we will seek to achieve recognition, status, or self-respect. This will be the personal drive, as we believe that this would make us happy. In the self-actualization category, it is about growth and personal development. This category is the desire to become the most one can be on the personal level, within the framework of one's personal life situations and goals. So all these categories are conditioned and influenced by outside forces, and therefore they will not guarantee lasting happiness. We call them social values because all of them are related to a social aspect related to the individual. So we may start looking for something more and deeper. How can we be happy, even if life conditions do not seem to provide what we believe is what we need in our life? It will motivate us to search towards the last category, the spiritual aspect. The spiritual aspect will provide a deeper insight, and we will be motivated to understand and experience the purpose of life and our true reality. So what is the purpose of life? If we look at religions, we will see that Islam says it is to serve the fellow humans in all walks of life. And similar with the Hinduism, they also focus on serving and say that we attain liberation through serving humans. Christianity is focusing on redemption. What can set us free? And this happens by following the path of truth, they say. And finally, Buddhism says it is to seek happiness. So we see that understanding the purpose of life shows us how to live, whereas to understand and experiencing our true reality will provide the resources to live according to the purpose, to find my true identity or experiencing my true reality is the key to lasting happiness. It is finding out who am I, which is to achieve self-knowledge. Self-knowledge, which is to know oneself, to find the goodness within, and this will strengthen our capacity to live a full and happy life. Marslow is mentioning that what one meets in life is our destiny. How one meets it is self-effort. And self-effort will be activated when we are in contact with our true nature. Marslow also says what is necessary in order to change a person is to change his awareness about himself. So we need to understand that we are much more than this body here. We are, in fact, embodiments of love. So Marslow contributed a lot to our understanding of how we are motivated and responding to our inner needs. The model here is from 1943. The year was when I was born. But the last section, to understand and experiencing the purpose of life and our true reality, was added much later in his life when he had more life experiences. On the next slide, we will see that some findings from the report, Learning the Treasure Within. Because when we start out and see how did Maslow's finding really influence the educational environment, it is interesting to see that it was not really much, because it was back in 1996, it became obvious to the UNESCO that education did not match the need of society. So they decided to investigate deeper. The result then can we find in this report here. Here the Delors Commission emphasized a very fundamental principle. Education should contribute to every person's complete development. And the basis of the report is the 4 pillars you see here on the slide. Learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together, and learning to be. Learning to know is the knowledge we need to have to be able to manage this world. Learning to do is the skills which are needed to apply our knowledge. Learning to live together. This is something which have not been given proper attention in education. How do we create greater understanding and develop a society in balance? From our point of view, this balance needs to be present in each individual before we will have a final successful outcome. However, the more people developing inner balance, the more stable will the society be. Learning to be is integrity. And from our point of view, awareness of our true identity. So the first 2 ones, acquiring knowledge and developing skills, have been the focus point for education for decades. Slowly now, the world is waking up and are beginning to include more social and intercultural education to teach the children to communicate, to solve problems and conflicts, which means the focus is on learning to live together. However, learning to be has not yet been able to catch the attention of our educational system. It is a lifelong education, and to have a meaningful outcome, it also involves the transformation of the teacher to be an inspiring example. So we use this program mostly in connection with children learning, but it's also relevant for grown-ups, because as grown-ups, we should be able to lead ourselves. So we can use these principles for our self-development process. Next slide. So if we look at research within education, we see that they mostly divide it into 2 aspects or 2 basic categories. The first one is the education where you learn to master something, and then the other one is the education that deals with experience. The education where you learn to master something is where we are acquiring knowledge and learning to do things or developing skills. These are the first 2 points in the Delors report we just saw. The education that deals with experience is another category. And we can compare this with the last 2 points, learning to live together and learning to be. When we look at the word experience, we will see that today's education is mostly focusing on creative activities to provide experiences. But we want to take the experience to the level where we are experiencing who we really are. So we need to add the spiritual aspect. The need for both secular as well as spiritual teaching is clearly described by Satyasai, because he is speaking about the 2 kinds of knowledge like this. Knowledge of the world. This deals with the knowledge and skills we need to acquire to be able to manage our worldly activities. And then he mentioned knowledge of the other world, and this deals with the goal of life. The first one, knowledge of the world, is the secular aspect, where we learn to master something. It has a clear connection to the philosophy of growth and expansion. The world is here for me to explore. It appeals to the intellectual side of the personality. Logical language, analysis, judgment are central here. The world is for the human race. Nature is for man to explore. Things are to be utilized and made useful. In this category, we get a lot of concrete knowledge and specific skills in order to be able to manage our daily life. We want to comprehend, we want to understand. But we have another force within us who wants to blow away the narrow frames of understanding. This is the areas of experiences. There are things in life which cannot be measured and weighed. The greatness of the world or the greatness of life, the expression of art and nature, and the company of other beings, other people, a poetic language. Everything that appeals to feelings and fantasy belongs to this category. It is a very intuitive process. And to speak metaphoric, you could say that it is to tell a story where you can hear the grass growing. From a spiritual point of view, it is to experience who I really am, the love energy. It is, as Marslow is pointing at, to experience my true nature. It is learning to be. At this level, it is no longer a method, but more like an attitude we bring into education. We see that our educational system today is missing this dimension as the modern technology demands new skills and concrete knowledge to match society. But this missing dimension is exactly what Satyasai is speaking about when he mentioned knowledge of the other world, which deals with the goal of life. This is where questions like who am I arises. So a spiritual process often starts with existentialistic questions like, why am I here? Where am I coming from? Where am I going? To find out what is the purpose of life. Once a wise man was asked, what is the purpose of life? And he answered, if I tell you, I will take away the purpose of life. He gave the person a possibility to reflect about what is the purpose of life. To find out that the purpose of life is the meaning of life. And once this truth has revealed itself, then to experience it. So all answers in this category is based on experiences and awareness. It is practical knowledge in the sense that all knowledge needs to be practiced in order to be experienced. It's not enough we have it up here in the heart. It has to come out. So it's not enough to know that we have this love inside us. We need to experience it, to practice it. And by doing this, it will transform us. Such a process makes it experiential, transformational, and integral. Integral, which means whole or complete, because all aspect of the human being, all aspect of human life is touched. So experiential learning is placing the child in the center of the learning process. It is dynamic and educational since the child, besides knowledge of the world he lives in, acquires knowledge about himself, about his strengths, and about his potential. And this opens up for a process where experiences lead to transformation. Next slide. So one quote from the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, which I like a lot. Sorry, excuse me. He says, to dare is to lose one's foothold for a moment. Not to dare is to lose oneself. We all know that whenever we enter into something new, there will always be elements of uncertainty, areas we are not familiar with. We are getting out of our comfort zone because we are no longer on stable ground. However, this should not stop us. We should have faith in ourselves, self-confidence, and faith in the good work we have started. We should have the courage to continue, as we otherwise may lose ourselves. Because we are not true then to our inner drive or motivation. And finally, we need faith in its success in spite of signs of failure. Now you may ask, how can I have faith in something which looks like being a failure? I will compare it to a child learning to walk. It gets up, it stumbles and falls. It gets up, it stumbles and falls. It happens again and again. But the child does not give up, and one day it will walk. Have you ever seen a child sitting down saying, no, this is too difficult, I give up? No, it continues, and one day it is going to walk, even it looks like a total failure. And we have to rediscover this inner drive, this inner motivation. So it is an ongoing awareness process through daily mindfulness to be present in the moment and to manifest the inherent human values. The children will need the good example of teachers, parents, and others around them. And we, as grown-ups, will have to develop the courage to look within and identify our feelings and motives for actions to improve ourselves. Next slide. So here we see, as a sum up, the main features of integral education. It is to integrate the human values into the curriculum to combine secular and spiritual education. The values should not necessarily be an add-on to the existing curricula. It should form the undercurrent of the curriculum design process. This program does not suggest or recommend any change or alteration of the existing curricula. It only seeks to achieve the reinforcement and enrichment of the existing curriculum to impart a new dimension of and with the values. The next points we see on this slide here, they are points for the common sessions in this module. The first one is creating an environment and culture of love. How can we create an environment of love? This is where we created, where we can plant the seed of human values and where these human values can sprout. So to have the best result, it is important that it's not restricted to the classroom setting. It should include the whole school setting, as well as faculty, principal, office workers, and parents should be included in it. Even society should be involved in such a process to have the maximum outcome. And this is why it is important that we bring this program out to wider circle, to have as many as possible to be inspired by this process. And then, of course, the teacher is important in creating an environment of love. How can we give love if we do not have love? Therefore, the teacher being an exemplar becomes evident, as he or his role is a crucial element in the teaching process. We should be an inspiration to our world. So it is a unified integration of secular inputs with the spiritual values, leading to a holistic and wider perspective to education and life in general. Understanding that your universal love entity is a core in all of us, in the teacher, in the student, in the parents, and that the goal of the educational process is this increasing awareness of this truth. Therefore, the teachers are the key point in this process through her and his ability to live the human values. But you will hear more about that in the following sessions. Now you may say, she started out saying that each philosophy has a pedagogy to make it practical. But until now, she has not been very practical. And there is some truth in that, I know. But my attempt has been to link back to the philosophy, to prepare you for what is coming. And when we are reaching the session with the 5 teaching techniques after the Christmas break, then it really becomes practical. Here you are introduced to the 5 methods of SSEHV, meditation or silent sitting as we call it, prayers, quotations, storytelling, group singing, and a lot of group activities. Next slide. So where will all this take us? What should be the outcome of our teaching? And this is where we see here on the next slide. Because fostering the self-confidence by becoming aware of that the conscience is the contact to the higher self. And through this process, the discrimination is activated. This is the first thing. It is then providing a basis for spirituality in daily life, bringing head, heart, and hand in harmony. And this will support the process of fostering self-discipline, self-sacrifice, and selfless service to the community. These focus points should be the leading principles when we choose the tools and strategies for integrating the values into the teaching. The word sacrifice is for many a challenging word. It sounds so hard that I have to sacrifice. However, if we change our focus and look at it from the point of view, what do I get from this process of letting go of something? Because what I achieve is something more beautiful and more permanent. And then it suddenly becomes a sacred act that can benefit not only me, but also others. So to sacrifice is to make something sacred. So now let us for a moment look at the process for us grown-ups. How are we different from children? Children are in the process of forming their personalities, and this is the process we are supporting through the SSEHV program. However, we as grown-ups, we have a full developed personality. We have in many cases developed habits which are not really useful for living a healthy and happy life. So we, on the contrary, need to de-learn and reframe ourselves to be good examples. In short, we should be able to change. As the world changes fast these days, it is much more important to be able to meet what happens in our life in a constructive way, rather than having a lot of knowledge of the past. So de-learning of old habits which are no longer useful is important. This is the transformation process that starts from the individual with a strong motivation to change oneself, as I talked about when I presented peace. This process is involving head, heart, and hand to live according to the spiritual human values and rebuild our character. Next slide. So now we are coming to an end of this presentation here. But first, I would like to share some pictures, because all over the world, we have schools using SSEHV. Shown on this slide here, and the next one is just a few examples from SSEHV schools and partnership schools. We have just counted that the numbers of SSEHV schools outside India at the moment is 42, and the numbers from India is around 100. Partnership schools are public schools using the SSEHV program in their schools. And to be a partnership school, all teachers in the school have to be trained. And at the moment, we have around 100 partnership schools all over the world. Next slide. Some more pictures here. However, it's not just schools using the SSEHV program. Many private institutions or individuals being trained in the SSEHV program are initiating projects to integrate the values into the society. And this happens all over the world, and is an important contribution in raising the consciousness of the children, their parents, and society at last. It was Mandela, the former South African president, who said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." And he is so right. The feedback we get from around the world is how SSEHV system has changed their schools, how the value system has created high academic standards and moral character in the students, how the students' attitude towards learning had changed. They want to learn and they want to give back to the society. Your contribution to this important task can be a valuable factor in creating a society in harmony based on love. It is an absolute win-win situation, because not only the society is benefiting through this process, we as individuals are strengthening our own development process. So thank you so much for your attention. I think now it's time to welcome questions.
Thank you, Marianne. Wonderful. A wonderful overview of Satyasai education, human values. And yes, this is the time of questions and answers. I would like before just to mention that always I like when I hear in this presentation this story with the Sleeping Beauty. You bring it so nicely, and then we hear that the wake-up keys is the SSEHV. Indeed, yes. This is so beautiful, and this is a good way to. This is also a nice technique to take all these beautiful stories that we have in our culture, in our traditions, and to use them, and to give the proper direction, so they can be nice tools to remind to the children, but also to us, yes, what is the real purpose, what is the real kiss that we expect from the prince. Yes. And indeed, this is the ultimate goal. And many times you mentioned that the purpose is to know ourselves. So it is really very much connected with what I was thinking about pedagogy, to lead the child. So for us also children, teachers, these goals should be very clear. And I think this is the the great thing with Satyasai education, which makes this goal clear. And another thing also is very nice from this that you bring in with Kierkegaard, that we have to lose our steps to find, to go on, to dare, to insist, and only this, like this, we can reach the goal. So thank you very much. Now I will invite Esther Chris, who is very good in taking care about the questions and answers. And I will invite all the participants, if you want, to send us a question in the chat. We won't give too much time, because then after the break, we will have the opportunity to share our thoughts in the breakout rooms. And so now we'll take 10 minutes. And then if we have still some questions that have to be answered, we can use the process with the email, like we have done in previous sessions.
Yes.
So Esther, Chris, please.
Thank you, dear George, and thank you, dear Marianne, for this uplifting presentation. I really love it, especially the magic kiss that will awaken us. It was awesome. Okay, there is a question. Is it possible to adapt SSEHV program to all curricula and to integrate it into different cultures?
Yes. This program is focusing on the human being and how to make the human being the best version of oneself. And this is what everybody wants, independently of culture and beliefs. So it's something which is very, very common to all of us. So it is about learning to live a life in harmony with oneself and the surroundings, to be in harmony with other people, with nature, and to be happy. And we all want to be happy. But the problem is that we do not understand life. And I like so much the quote of John Lennon, where he says, "When I was 5 years old, my mother told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote, happy. They told me that I didn't understand the assignment. I told them that I did not understand life." So I think what is so beautiful about this program here is that it gives us the possibility to find out who we really are and to understand life and the purpose of life and experience happiness, lasting happiness. And to facilitate this, we have to create awareness about that the human values, they are universal. They are universal because it is common to all religions, all cultures, all people. And the goal is to experience this uniting force. The nations on this earth are multiple. These nations have multicultural, multiracial, multi-languages. And within these nations, there are different societies, companies, organizations expressing themselves in different ways. So there's so many different things expressed. But what do we all have in common? All have a human body with its cells and different parts. We all have this breath keeping us alive, which connect us to the life force penetrating the whole universe. The life force is sustaining all living creatures, nature, and it manifests itself in its most pure form as universal love energy. And this is who we are. So whenever this message is brought into the many different cultures and environments, it is done by focusing on the unity aspect. And SSEHV is building on the principles of unity. Later in this program here, you will hear more about that. We will go deeper into that when the core principles of SSEHV is presented. The core principle is unity and diversity, unity in head, heart, and hand, unity in faith, and so on. So talking about unity of faith, there are so many common aspects. All religions are showing a pathway aiming at finding the same truth. They all have various disciplines to purify themselves. They all have guidance on how to show what is beneficial to the individual and to society. I remember once we went to a Muslim country with this program here. The feedback we got was, this is amazing how this teaching matches our culture. And we just presented the human values and showed how it was presented in their culture. We connected to their culture. So we should find points of contact and similarities and teach them to be happy, to live in peace in spite of cultural differences. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marianne, because you make us thinking about how this unity, this special aspect that unites everyone in the world is the key point of this program, and this is how we can manage to change all the world. So it's amazing. Thank you very much. And I have another question. Why does integral education result in well-being and happiness of students and teachers likewise?
Yes, I think that I already touched this in my previous answer, but I can deepen it a little because working with the different parts of our personality and learn how to harmonize them brings balance in our life. It is when we are in inner balance that we can open the door for the love to flow. But this door is automatically closing when we are confronted with frustrations, doubt, and negative emotions. So the question is, how do we keep the door? How do we open the door, and how do we keep it open? All the values have answers and advices to these questions that can be used as guidance, depending on who we are and where we are in the process. What I can add is that the process of integrating the principles of SSEHV is done through understanding and experiencing. Understanding alone is not giving happiness. It is the integrating process that leads us to experiencing this. So we have to make them understand and experience the true reality, to become a better version of themselves, to teach them to solve problems. Everybody experiences ups and downs in life. When life is going well, we do not need to call upon strengths. However, when challenges come along, it all depends on our flexibility, how well we adapt to the new situation, and how this may inspire us to a new perspective. Learning is often defined as a relative lasting change in behavior that is the result of experience. When you think of learning, it might be easy to fall into the trap of only considering formal education that takes place during childhood and early adulthood. But learning is a realistically an ongoing process taking place throughout all our life. And this is why this program is beneficial for children as well as for grown-up. How do we learn? I mean, we are different. We are set to learn through different channels. Some are visual, some are audio, etc. And these main channels are for outside learning. What we need to add is the awakening from inside, and we will see how life starts changing, and the ability to reflect and discriminate is increased. So it's not always a linear process. Sometimes we experience discontinuity in the learning process. And this can happen because of uncertainty, struggle, or confusion. And in these moments, learning stops. But at the same time, they are valuable steps in new understanding. It is because they result in more clarity when we realize our inner conflicts. It is said in existentialistic pedagogy, it's described like some metaphor that they call the meeting. The meeting is like two ships meeting each other, where one of them is forced to change direction to avoid collision. And they talk about, in a meeting between two people, the confrontation of two opposite viewpoints is taking place. So the validity of the conviction is being tested. The result is either a conflict, or we are challenged to reconsider our position or viewpoint. And it can happen between teacher and student, but it may also take place when you are reading a text. It's challenging your belief, a story being presented to a new concept, new ideas, where we are forced to reconsider our standpoint. And the outcome can give new insight because it moves us, so to speak, it relocates us. And it will help us to become aware of our thoughts, feelings, and action. And the interaction with other viewpoints can therefore further new understanding and initiate a transformation process. If we can bring about a meeting where those involved are having equal rights, it can lead to an important dialogue where the world can be seen in a new light. It is a process of de-learning old habits and reframing, as we talked about earlier. Socrates was a beautiful example on how to use a dialogue to bring about a meeting of two souls with equal rights, to create this prerequisite for an awakening from inside. So it is really an interesting tool for self-development. And it brings us to the point where we can experience well-being and happiness. This became a long talk. I'm so sorry.
No, not at all. Really, it was very interesting. And I have another question from one of the participants in the chat, so I will read it to you. So it's, how do you present the purpose of life to someone who is not yet at this point in life open or curious to this issue?
Okay, I'm not sure that I would choose the way to explain and try to make them understand. Instead, I would like to inspire them, to find new ways, to find new solutions to what they are in the midst of. And I think one tool to access this with the help of a student and somebody from outside could be the process of integrating self-inquiry, where you ask yourself some questions, which can be initiated from outside, because it can become an important way to access our own inner teacher, to find guidance to our challenge. It becomes spiritual because we are giving the opportunity to explore our mind and look beneath the surface of our own assumptions. So then it automatically becomes spiritual. We do not have to explain to them that this is a spiritual way of doing things, because it's just a way to offer to that they have new understanding by practicing. So it gives them the opportunity to explore their mind and look beneath the surface of their assumptions and leaving behind old programming. So self-inquiry promotes the process of self-transformation. And this may be the beginning where we understand ourselves better and are able to bring more light into our lives. So step by step. And often these questions that we are asking ourselves or others are asking us in order to start reflecting, they always happen when things are difficult. And this is always why is this happening in my life? What could I do different to be more in line with the values? What is it in me which is blocking for doing this and this and that? So really, I I think that it is important that we go into this process together and support each other and help each other and take the situation from the issues and meet the people where they are in the moment, and then the rest will unfold.
Thank you so much, Marianne. This is a process of full respect, a program that led us to experience, to enrich through the differences, to inspire, to transform. It's really great. It's so complete. So I invite everybody to write their questions in the chat, and I will give it to you so you can answer through the mail.
Please
so
do.
thank you so much for your presentation and also for your answers. Very inspiring.
Now we'll have a break for 5 minutes. It came something in my mind, just a sentence to summarize much of what was said today by Marianne. The awakened keys of SSEHV is the key of lasting happiness. These are very essential to keep in mind. And with this, I know that many of you would like to share your thoughts, and for this we will have the opportunity to the second session, the second part of this session. So now, 5 minutes break.